Hello students, in the last module we started about discussing the emotional development in the childhood. We tried to understand what is the emotional development, the pattern of emotional development, significance of emotional development and started the stages of emotional development. If you remember, we discussed about how the child expresses the emotions in the infancy and how the parents or the caregivers have to create certain situations to facilitate a better emotional development during the childhood. Now, let us continue with the other stages of emotional development in the children. After the infancy stage, I think all of you are familiar what is the next stage, that is toddler stage or preschool age. So, generally during this particular stage, the age would be ranging from 2 to 5 years old. So, now let us see what sort of emotions are expressed by the children in this age and what we have to do as adults to make them have an understanding about their own emotions and have some regulation on their behavior. So, during this toddler stage, when the child starts walking, they will take on a whole new adventurous approach to life. They will start exploring on their own and their language skills will also develop by now very significantly. They will start naming objects and people and will start developing their own personality very quickly. During this stage of their life, they will start exploring their emotions also and might even start throwing temper tantrums. During these moments, it is very important that the parents or caregivers learn to teach the child the value of delayed gratification. That is, we need to teach the child that anything will not be immediately satisfied, you have to wait for your turn in order to get something. When we are giving everything immediately, whatever the child is asking, the child will become very impulsive. But when we are delaying that gratification, the child will learn the emotion of having some patience, waiting for their turn in order to get something. Just as the child learns to say no, they should also need to learn to accept hearing a no from other people too. During the toddler period, in conjunction with rapid maturation of the frontal lobes and the limbic circuit in the brain, the recognition of the self emerges. As a result, the toddler strives to become more independent and expresses anger and defiance increases in their struggle for autonomy. The ability to differentiate the self from others also promotes basic empathetic behavior and moral understanding. By the end of the second year of life, toddlers respond to negative signals from others and they have specific emotional responses to their own negative actions. The emotions that emerge with a rudimentary conception of the self are often called self-conscious emotions, and these include shame, embarrassment, guilt and pride. Some self-conscious emotions like pride and guilt do not emerge until toddlers and young children have learned to conceptualize internalized standards of behavior. That is, by the time they develop the morals, only then some emotions will be expressed, that is feelings of shame and guilt. Toddlers often point to things as a way of interacting with others and use interactive gestures like waving goodbye. They commonly take part in interactive play. And during this stage, toddlers typically begin to learn empathy, such as feeling upset if another child cries. They also take part in pretend play like stirring food in a play cooking pot, and they engage in parallel play next to other children. So, many researchers call this toddler stage as terrible twos, because most toddlers have strong emotions, but they have not yet learned how to fully express those in an acceptable way. They rely on caring adults to help them with the words they need. Toddlers also look to adults to serve as models of how to stay calm. That's the reason why as adults we need to have a proper management of the emotion. Erikson's stage of development, this phase would last around age 3, and he wrote that children with supportive parents usually have confidence, will, self-control and pride. Now, as these children enter preschool, they start to learn to label their own emotions and rely on discourse about emotions within the family to facilitate the understanding of basic emotions. Young children first distinguish happiness from negative emotions, and then they start distinguishing negative emotions like sadness, anger and fear from each other. They begin to recognize these emotions in facial expressions, and then as they enter middle childhood, they begin to understand situational determinants of emotions. An understanding of emotional subjectivity also develops as children learn that what makes one child happy may not make another child feel the same way. The emergence of emotional self-regulation is very important during this early childhood, and this occurs in the context of family and peer relationships. Open expression of positive emotions and warm, supportive relationships between parents and children promote effective emotional self-regulation. On the other hand, frequent expression of negative emotions in the family and harsh, punitive disciplinary responses increase the experience of distressing and dysregulated emotions that may lead to abnormality, that is psychopathology. Appropriate peer relationships characterized by sharing in the play activities are also important for the development of emotional regulation during this early childhood. Children gain emotional understanding and also the capacity for empathetic and helping behavior from well-regulated emotional exchanges with peers. Emotional development in preschool kids includes learning to control emotions and impulses to fit with socially acceptable reactions. Most often the children attempt to test the limits and rely on their parents and caregivers for the guidance. So, preschoolers also practice controlling their aggression towards others. They usually gain cooperative play skills like taking turns and sharing. Erikson called this phase the play age, and it lasts throughout the preschool until children enter formal school. According to Erikson, the goals in this stage include using imagination, trying to cool others and serve effectively as both leaders, and expressing emotions take place during this critical stage. As children develop vocabulary and they also become more independent, they will experiment with expressing emotion in different ways. So, language also contributes. Some of it will be productive, like drawing, narrating a picture of the scary monster under the bed. Some of it will be more like throwing a temper tantrum in the grocery store because they cannot get cheese puffs. This can be a very difficult stage for adults as children experience complex emotions, but they have not yet figured out healthy versus unhealthy expression. Then how to handle these preschool children? How we can facilitate a better emotional development? The first thing is stay calm when they are not. After all, they are children and they show the temper tantrums. They will happen. They are a normal part of the development. As a toddler's feelings outrun their ability to express them, they will do so in the only way they know how. So, our job as adults is to help them find a better way so that we cannot giving to the temper tantrums or having the similar kind of an emotion how the child is displaying. We need to direct child's anger or frustration with clarity, kindness, warmth and also empathy and with firmness. The first thing to remember is, as trivial as that they may seem, a child is always entitled to their own emotions. Instead of pointing them how awkward or absurd it is to be angry when you have warned them that screen time is coming to an end, validate why they are mad. Be empathetic towards the child at how hard this moment is for him or her. This approach, coupled with praise for completing the relatively hard to do tasks that have upset them, is a model for helping children understand that how frustrations happen and what matters most is how you handle them. Another important thing is give them the language to name and explain. That is, the best way to having a temper tantrum is being able to express emotion through words. So, encourage the child to say, I am angry, or I am angry because he took my toy. So, such statements like help them to express their feelings better rather than melting down. This can in turn help them feel more in control of their emotions. One of the best ways to help children learn about emotion is through story. This not only provides emotional vocabulary, but puts it into a creative context. The next important technique is provide positive reinforcement. Certainly, there will be a time for the words no, don't and stop, but if those are the only words we use, they can quickly lose power. So, celebrate the little ways that children make progress. Whenever the child is able to regulate the emotion, provide them the positive feedback, give them some kind of a reinforcement. By pointing out when they use their words or actions to positively express themselves instead of screaming and kicking, we can build their self-confidence and encourage them to grow. Now, what is the next stage? After the toddler or preschool, obviously it is a school going age. So, this age would be between 6 and 12 years. During this stage of a child's life, they become more independent and more social. And during this stage, a parent or a caregiver needs to instill a lot of morals and accepted behavior. Some children may struggle to adapt to schooling, and it is important at this stage that parents are able to provide praise and encouragement for achievement, but at the same time parents must also be able to allow the children to sometime experience the natural consequences for their behavior or provide logical consequences to help them learn from the mistakes. During middle and late childhood, stable self-concepts based on the child's typical emotional experiences emerge. With this increased capacity for self-reflection, children gain an understanding of their self-conscious emotions. As a result, the consistent experience of patterns of self-conscious emotions will have an impact even on the child's self-concept. During middle and late childhood, children begin to understand that a single situation or event can lead to the experience of multiple mixed emotions. For example, older children understand that a goodbye party for a sibling who will leave for college is likely to be both a happy and a sad event for the child and his sibling. This capacity will emerge with the cognitive capacity to understand multiple aspects of a situation called decentration. Children will also learn emotional display rules as they progress through middle age and late childhood. For example, a child to look happy even though she feels upset when a friend or a family member gives her an undesirable gift. The use of display rules tends to increase as children begin to consider what consequences their actions may have for others. Display rules are then used very judiciously, and the likelihood of suppressing negative emotion depends on number of factors like child's gender, the likely recipients of the expression, the specific context and the child's cultural milieu. So, managing emotions is very critical during this stage for the child. A new social environment and more independence provides a great opportunity for growth, but at the same time in the school environment the child will also be facing new challenges. Sharing, listening, playing together not only provides happiness, but they can also cause friction between the children, and since they cannot rely on their parents all the time as they are going to the school, they must develop new coping skills to manage on their own. So, during this stage they also experiment which technique will work to deal with a particular situation, which emotion they have to use, which emotion they should not use. So, teachers also play a vital role in this child's development by creating a very safe space and also by providing the guidance. Now, during this school age, what are the techniques or what are the situations that we have to consider, how we have to facilitate a better development of emotions in the children? First thing is, give them certain strategies. Just as infants suck their thumb sucking behavior as a technique or clutch their blankets, similarly the school going children can also use such ways to deal with their intangible emotions. Going to a quiet place, doing a deep breathing and coloring are all the good strategies. The goal is to help children learn what works for them. So, do they need to be alone or have a conversation or be distracted before they can process their feelings? Doing this before a child gets upset can go a long way toward influencing their behavior when they are. So, first let them try their own techniques and then we can provide them with the effective techniques. You can support the child in managing their emotions by modeling coping strategies and then practicing them together. I am feeling angry because I dropped the bowl and it broke. I think I need to take some deep breath. Can you take some deep breaths along with me? This will help a child better understand how and when to apply a particular coping strategy to calm down. Second thing is, have a realistic expectation. If you expect too much from a child, you will be disappointed and frustrated, and too much of this and a child will start to associate shame and anxiety with their emotions, something that can hurt their future development. On the other hand, if you expect too little, a child may learn very unhealthy behaviors instead of developing effective skills. This is the reason it is very important to be aware of different emotional stages. If you know that 2-year-olds will have tantrums, it is much easier to empathize with them and help them make next steps in processing what is upsetting them. Another important technique is validate. That is, in order for a child to know that an emotion is manageable, first they must know that it is very normal. Like not able to perform well, feeling bad about it, it is quite normal. They have to understand that. If they feel like they are the only one who experiences this kind of a pain or a frustration, they are more likely to believe that they are helpless to it. So, saying things like, this is very frustrating, I would be frustrated too. You can show them that feeling frustrated is not bad while also normalizing their experience. So, this validation, that is validating an emotion in a particular situation, is an important key to build both self-confidence and a healthy response to emotion. Now, the last stage of the emotional development where the maximum development takes place is adolescent or a teenager, that is between 13 to 18-year-old age group. The teenage years, always we know that it is a biggest challenge poses to the parenthood. During this time, a child goes through many emotional and social changes. Most of the 13 or 14-year-olds are going through puberty, which means we can expect certain mood changes, changes in the sensitivity and also self-consciousness. Around the age of 15, most children want to do things without their parents and want to be more social with friends. By the time they reach 17, they are equipped to regulate their emotions. They are less likely to lose their tempers, and healthy teens know how to deal even with uncomfortable feelings. During this stage, they will develop and strengthen relationships with people they feel very close to. So, adolescents become less emotionally dependent on their parents, but this emotional autonomy emerges after a period of conflict and increased experience of negative emotions. Young adolescents often experience more negative effect than younger children, but this negative effect, however, decreases during the high school years. Similarly, girls often experience a longer period of negative effect than boys. Adolescents tend to experience more extreme emotions, whether it is positive or negative, than their parents, even in response to the same event. That is the reason why we say like adolescents are oversensitive or over emotional. So, the initial stages of adolescent, they do display this kind of an emotionality. So, what is the most important skill that we have to consider for a strong emotional development? There are 5 key skills. One is self-awareness, second one is social awareness, third one is emotional regulation, fourth one is responsible decision making, and fifth one relationship building. All these skills are very much important in learning the emotional development, and these skills not only have a control over our emotions, but they will also influence our success both at the school, at home, in communities and in society. On the other hand, those who are not given emotional guidance often struggle emotionally, academically, physically and also behaviorally. So far we have understood the different stages of emotional development. Now, what is this concept of emotional expression? Emotional expression includes several components like physical responses, like heart rate increases, breathing might be increasing, there might be some hormonal changes, behavioral displays of emotion, feelings that children and young people recognize and learn to name, then thoughts and judgments associated with feelings, then action signals, for example, a desire to approach a situation or escape a situation or fight with a situation. So, all these things come under the emotional expression. Now, what are the different factors that influence our emotional expression? The first and foremost thing is values and beliefs. So, your values and beliefs about which is appropriate and which is an inappropriate way of expressing emotions, that will be learnt by the children from families and also from the educators, especially the teachers. Then, how effectively children and young people's emotional needs are met and young people's temperaments, cultural norms influence the emotional expression. All emotions are not displayed universally in all the cultures. Some are acceptable in some cultures, some are not acceptable in the other culture. Then emotional behaviors that children and young people have learned through observation or experience. Then the extent to which families are under various kinds of stress, that will also influence the child's expression of emotion. A broken family, a disturbed family, a child coming from such families, naturally they may have a over expression or they may not express at all whatever they are undergoing in the family environment. So, this kind of an emotional development, the expression of it, the pattern of it may vary from person to person. Some children may show high level of emotional skill development when they are very young, whereas others take longer time to develop the capacity to manage their emotions well into adolescence. Now, let us see how we can enhance emotional development in children by using certain techniques in general. One important technique is providing effective support for children and young people's emotional development starts with paying attention to their own feelings and noticing how they are able to manage them. Second technique is tuning to children and young people's feelings and also the emotions. Tuning into children's and young people's emotions involves looking at their body language, listening to what they are communicating and how they are saying it. Sometimes more than the words that they are using, how they are saying it matters a lot, and then observing their behavior. This allows us to respond more effectively to children and also to the young people's needs and to offer a better guidance in a particular situation to help them out to manage their emotion. The third technique is help the children by recognizing and understanding their emotions. Talking to children and teaching them about emotions helps them to become more aware of their own emotions as well as those of others. It also helps them to manage their emotions over time. Another important technique is set certain limits on inappropriate expression of emotions. Children should know which is normal and okay to have a range of emotions and feelings and when it is not normal. Teach them the language and the skills in order to deal with their emotions like anger and frustration in a positive way. This will help them to set certain limits on aggressive, unsafe or inappropriate behaviors. Another important technique is, as adults, we have to be a good role model. Show the children and young people different ways you understand and manage emotions helps them learn from you. For example, if you lose your temper, apologize and show how you might make changes. From you, children will learn this kind of a behavior. Then teach empathy. Empathy is one important thing which is very important in order to develop the emotional intelligence in the children. So, encourage the children to understand the other person's problem, other person's feelings from the another person's perspective. Summary of the module. So, students, in this module you have understood at different stages of child's development, right from toddler to the adolescence, how the changes are occurring in the children socially and also emotionally, how it is affecting their development, and as adults, whether it is parents or caregivers or teachers, how they have to contribute to their emotional development by providing a conducive and congenial atmosphere and also by being good role models. Now, the overall comprehensive understanding on the emotional development, if we can perceive it from the last module and current module. In the last module, we have discussed about what is emotion, emotional pattern of development, Goleman's concept of emotional development, significance of emotional development, functions of emotions, and then we started with the different stages at which the child's emotional development will start. And then we continued with the other stages right from the infancy to the adolescence, and overall general techniques which can be followed by the educators or by the parents or caregivers were also have been included in this module.